Hey everyone, Ronan here, and welcome back to the challenge. We got a lot to cover in today's part, because it's a pretty intense gym battle that we're going to have. But before we get into that, we got to shout out the patron, as always. So Dylan Wolfdog31, thank you very much for the support. And you guys, analytics are very important, so please make sure to drop a like and a comment to help fuel the algorithm so we can get to a larger audience. And also, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button, so that way you'll never miss an upload from the channel. But with all that being said, let's get into what if Brock took the gym challenge, part 15. I hope you enjoy. We begin today's part with Brock and Joe as they arrive in the city of Sirchester. This is the site of Brock's 6th gym badge, and they have been traveling for quite a while trying to reach the city. The journey here was a treacherous one, as they left Leon back in Balanlia, as Brock wanted to get here as soon as possible so that way he can get out of the Glimwood Tangle after being stuck in there for so long. It took them both about a week in order to get here, as they had to travel through the frozen mountains that divided the region in the northern half. And it's at this point we find our heroes sitting in the Pokemon Center as they are eating while their Pokemon are getting checked up on. Brock and Joe are talking about everything that has happened so far and how much time they have left until class actually starts, as Brock realizes that it's getting to the point to where him and Joe are going to eventually have to separate. He wants to make sure that Joe can get back on time, so that way the boy doesn't get any penalties because Brock won't be returning. But Joe already told Brock not to worry. He's going to stick with him as long as he needs to until Brock's ready to go back, if he's ever ready to go back. However, there is one thing that Joe does mention that he's happy that they don't have to deal with anymore, and that's Giselle, as they haven't seen her in a couple of weeks. Brock asks if that's worry that he hears in Joe's voice. However, the boy simply scoffs, saying that it's more like he's relieved he's not having to deal with her always around and getting in the way. It was getting real old having to watch out for all of the things that she was trying to do behind our backs. Yeah, she was awfully persistent with getting us to go back to the school, Brock says. However, I do feel kind of bad with how things ended. She seems so desperate, and I was wondering why that was. However, Joe just simply tells Brock not to worry about it. She dug her own grave by instigating this entire thing. She's the reason you came out to Galar, and I came out here as well. So, if she doesn't like it, she's gonna have to deal with it. Her own behavior is what got her to this place, so there's nothing more she can do but accept the consequences. Brock agrees with Joe on this. He wants to say something else. However, the duo are interrupted when they get a call over the loudspeaker from Nurse Joy. She's requesting Joe specifically as it concerns his Sableye. Thinking there may be something wrong, they both stand up from the table that they're at, abandoning their food, and head to the front of the Pokemon Center in order to try and find out what's wrong with Sableye as quickly as possible. Boys are there lightning fast, kind of surprising Nurse Joy as she wasn't expecting them to get there so quick. However, Joe immediately lets out a cry concerning his Sableye as he is out of breath. "Is it okay?" the boy mutters. However, Nurse Joy tells him to calm down. Sableye is fine. She just had some questions about it and figured that Joe would be the best person to talk to about this. This gets the boy to inquire about what she wants to know, to which Nurse Joy simply asks if Joe knows where Sableye got that stone that it's been holding. The ghost type doesn't want to let it go, and it won't even let her properly examine it or anywhere that it's near. Joe simply replies they found it in the wild area. Sableye dug it up, and ever since then, it's been hoarding it like it's a protected treasure, and it refuses to let it out of its sight or let anybody else hold it. And considering it wasn't really causing any harm, I figured that it wouldn't be okay for Sableye to keep it. After all, it wasn't being hurt, is it? To which Nurse Joy says no. She actually thinks that that's something that could benefit Sableye. From what she could see, it looks like it might be something called a Megastone, specifically a Sablenite, which means that it is tailored specifically to Sableye. If Joe was able to find the other components needed, then he would be able to help the ghost type unlock a new level of power through Mega Evolution. This kind of gets Joe excited, as while he's been watching Brock and even Giselle grow from the background, he's been daydreaming about ways that he can get stronger. And while some of his Pokemon have evolved and he's captured some new Pokemon, the truth of the matter is they haven't really been growing in strength. They've just been growing as a side effect of being exposed to Brock and his Pokemon. And now Nurse Joy is telling him that there's a possibility that he can get this ultra powerful Mega Evolution. The boy quickly inquires on if Nurse Joy knows exactly how to obtain this, to which Nurse Joy sadly responds that she doesn't. Mega Evolution isn't something that's common in the Galar region. It's only Dynamax Gigantamaxing and Gigantamaxing here? This answer gets Joe down a bit. However, Nurse Joy tells him not to be sad. If he wants to learn more about Mega Evolution, all he has to do is head over to the Kalos region or the Hoenn region. They're famous for Mega Evolution, as it's something that is quite common in those two places. Specifically Kalos, they would have every bit of information that Joe needs, as from what her memory serves, there's a place called the Tower of Mastery. This immediately perks Joe right up, as he's been itching for the chance to get Sableye or any of his Pokemon some more power. He quickly thanks Nurse Joy before she hands back the Pokeballs to both Brock and him. You hear that, the boy says? There's a way for Sableye to get stronger. I think I need to look into this more. However, Brock doesn't want to be the bearer of bad news, but he reminds Joe that there's only 4 weeks left until school starts. Unless Joe were to leave Brock alone here in Galar and head to Kalos himself, the chances of him actually being able to obtain any information on Mega Evolution outside of what he already knows is going to be slim to none. So the boy is going to have to choose his next path very carefully, to which causes Joe to hang his head a bit as the reality of the situation sets in. That night, Brock and Joe are laying in bed as they're getting a good night's sleep in preparation for Brock's next gym battle tomorrow. However, Joe is the one that can't really sleep, as he's laying awake, contemplating the future choices that he's going to have to make. What is going to be best for him and his Pokemon? These are the only thoughts that play in the boy's head as the night fades into the next morning. This is where we find Brock and Joe up bright and early. Well, up is a loose term, as Joe really couldn't sleep after the revelation of the possibility for Sableye to get stronger. However, that's going to be the last thing that the boy's going to have to think about at this current time, as now that the sun is up and Brock is in full swing, he has one thing on his mind, and that's the gym battle that he wants to undertake today. He doesn't know what type of gym that Circhester has to offer, but he knows one thing. No matter what they face, his Pokemon are going to be ready. However, he's just going to have to be cautious of Thwackey, as another outburst like it had the other day could cause him to lose a gym battle. After all, he was barely able to keep up with Opal. However, while Brock is excited, he does notice that his friend Joe looks exhausted. He tells the boy that he should stay behind. It looks like he needs some rest, and the Pokemon Center is rather quiet now, so this would be the perfect time for him to head back to the room and get some shut-eye. However, Joe is insistent upon going, as he doesn't want to leave Brock alone, as he wants to show his friend that he could support him. However, for once in his life, Brock is going to tell Joe that he's not going to accept no for an answer. The boy tells his friend to go back to the room. If Joe can't stay awake, then what's the point of trying to go watch a Pokemon battle? You're just going to nod off whenever you start to zone out, which in Brock's case that would be a bad thing, as it would cause him to lose focus because he's going to be worried about his friend. So the boy would much rather Joe stay here so that way he can get the necessary rest. That way, when they're ready to move on to the next destination, they will have the ability to unimpeded. Reluctantly, Joe agrees with Brock, as he can barely keep his eyes open, so he decides that he's going to head back. He tells Brock to knock him dead. After all, this gym battle could be an intense one, and even though Brock has been on a bit of a winning streak as of late since Kabu, don't underestimate the gym leader, as each one has been proven to be more stronger than the last one. Smiling, Brock tells him thanks for the advice, before he parts ways, leaving Joe to go back to La La Land, so that way the boy could be well rested. While Brock's goal is to ultimately get to the gym to challenge for the gym battle, he gets a little sidetracked, as he's not quite sure on where the gym is in this town. While normally they're marked by a huge stadium, things seem kind of off, as he's standing outside what looks like to be some very old water area. They look like hot springs, well, man-made hot springs. Come to find out, these are baths that were created by an ancient civilization that used to live in this area of the Galar region. This piques the boy's curiosity, as he would like the chance to actually take a bath, as it looks really soothing. However, he's gonna have to take a pass, as he needs to get to the gym so that way he can earn his 6th badge of the Galar region. After some more aimless wandering through the city, Brock finally happens upon a building that seems like it could potentially be a gym, as there's an insignia outside above the door that is similar to the previous gyms that he's experienced. With nothing else to really go on, Brock decides to head in an attempt to inquire if this is the actual gym or not. However, he's not going to have to wait long for that answer, as when he walks inside, there is a very burly man with a pair of sunglasses that just so happens to be playing with his Pokemon. Well, actually, I wouldn't say playing, it's more like wrestling with his Pokemon. And while this is already out of the ordinary, it's the type of Pokemon that Brock sees that catches his attention. They're all rock types. This is where the boy calls out to the blonde-haired man, causing the burly individual to stop and looking on in curiosity. Brock inquires if this is the Circhester gym, as he would like a chance to challenge for a badge, to which the man stands up, eagerly greeting Brock, telling him that his name is Gordy, and this is indeed the Circhester gym. And Brock's in luck, because he hasn't had a challenger in a few days, and Gordy was getting antsy, and he would be more than happy to take on Brock's challenge as the leader of this gym. This immediately perks Brock up, as after all the time that he spent walking around the city, he was beginning to lose hope that he would actually find this place. But for him to randomly walk into a building and not only find the gym, but the gym leader has him stoked and ready to battle. The boy immediately questions if they can get started, to which Gordy shows Brock's same level of enthusiasm, telling Brock that he is a rock type trainer. There's nothing more he enjoys than their rock hard defenses and the fact that people underestimate them. They always seem to think that they can be beaten so easily. However, the reason why I'm a gym leader here in the Galar region is because I've proven time and time again that the rock typing is not something to be taken lightly. This is where Brock chimes in, explaining to Gordy that he is actually the son of a gym leader in Kanto, and his father just so happens to specialize in the rock typing as well. You may have heard of him, the one known as Flint. This is where Gordy brushes his chin briefly, trying to think about who the rock-type gym leaders across the Pokemon world are. However, he doesn't recall anybody named Flint. He must not be that strong if I can't remember him, Gordy says. This strikes a nerve with Brock, as it seems like Gordy is just brushing off his dad, to which strikes another nerve with Brock. Why would Gordy brushing off his dad cause him to be a little bit upset about it? After all, him and his dad weren't on the best of terms as it is. But then again, that's not something he can worry about here, as Brock merely tells Gordy that if he doesn't know who his father is, that's fine, but he's going to show him everything that he's learned from the pewter gym. Well, being the son of a rock-type specialist, you must have some pretty impressive Pokemon. Are you a rock-type specialist as well? To which Brock actually shudders at this comment, declaring that he never really wanted to be a specialist in that typing, as that was his father's typing, and he wasn't really around him that much when he was younger. But a water-type specialist, now that's something that Brock may want to consider in the future. After all, his mother, before she passed, well, she was one of the best, if not the best, water typing specialists that Kanto had to offer. The mere mention of water typing causes Gordy to shudder a little bit, as he knows full well that this typing is the antithesis to the rock typing, striking a nerve with him as he tells Brock that he has no idea what he's talking about. Rock types are way better. However, Brock tells him that no, water types are better, and he'll prove it in their battle today, as he holds up a Pokeball. Gordy excitedly accepts this challenge, as he holds up one himself, telling Brock that this is going to be a 3-on-3, so follow him as they head over to the battlefield. As Brock walks behind Gordy, they are oddly silent, as Brock is thinking about his choices. If this is a rock-type specialist, then Brock knows full well the one Pokemon that he's going to need to take down this arrogant rock-type user, as he looks down and smirks at Gyarados' ball. Moments later, the two find themselves standing across from each other in the gym, and Gordy informs Brock that this will be a 3-on-3 battle. Brock will be the only one that's allowed substitutions, and the battle will be over when one side is out of all Pokemon. So he hopes that Brock's ready, as Gordy intends to put him through the ringer to show him just how great the rock typing truly is. Smiling, Brock tells Gordy that he would be more than happy to prove the gym leader wrong, as he readies his first and what he thinks is going to be his only choice in this battle. Gordy can see the look of determination on Brock's face, and this is something he knows is going to bring an excellent battle. So, without further ado, he decides to ready his first Pokeball, as he sends in a Pokemon that Brock hasn't gotten too much experience with, something called a Barbicle. However, Brock is feeling a little bit antsy after all of Gordy's claims, so he forgoes using the Pokedex to find out exactly anything about it, choosing to send in Gyarados to make his point known that water types are superior. With a notification to start the round, Brock takes the first move, telling Gyarados to use a Dragon Dance. However, this is going to be quickly matched by Gordy when he tells his rock type to use something called a Shell Smash. Gyarados begins to move and gyrate in a circular motion, increasing both of its attack and speed, while Barbicle does something completely different. It begins to glow in a red aura while swelling with power as a layer of skin or armor on it begins to crack and shatter off. Brock knows that this has the same effects of his Dragon Dance, he just doesn't know what exactly the effects are. However, he's not going to wait to find out, as he orders Gyarados in with a Knockout Tail to cause as much damage as possible. However, Gordy is going to be quick to counter this, as he orders something from Barbicle that's going to throw Brock a little off, commanding a Razor Shell, which while Brock isn't familiar with this rock type in particular, he is very familiar with this move as this is a water type move, and Barbacle is able to use this to deflect the Aqua Tail by using the shells that it has all across its body to counter the rock type move, preventing any damage to itself. You like that, Gordy says? That's a Razor Shell, and it's going to be the exact reason why your Gyarados isn't going to be able to cause any damage to my Barbacle. However, Brock just has one question. Why is it able to use a water type move? Oh, you haven't figured it out yet, kid? Well, let me explain it to you. While Barbacle is a rock type, it also shares the water typing. So, no matter what you try, it's going to be difficult for your water type to make any type of damage onto my Mon. Now beginning to understand the battle plan of this gym leader, Brock changes tactics, ordering Gyarados to use the Dragon Pulse. However, Barbacle isn't going to waste any time and allow that attack to charge up, as at the command of its trainer, the most powerful rock type that it can muster in a Stone Edge is sent the way of the Serpent. Brock tells Gyarados to fire as quickly as possible. If any of those stones hit, it's going to be a critical damage for them. And unfortunately for the boy, his thoughts came true, as while Dragon Pulse was strong enough to fend off at least half of the stones, the other half got through, with a third of them managing to connect with the half water, half flying type. And unfortunately for Brock, this is where he's going to find out the hard way exactly what kind of stat buff Barbacle got, as not only was this a critical hit on his Serpent, but the damage was increased because of the attack increase that Barbacle had received, dropping it in one fell swoop. As the thud from his Serpent's body echoes from hitting the ground, Brock can do nothing but stand there in pure shock. He didn't think that his most powerful Pokemon, Gyarados, would lose that quickly, and now his whole plan of action is out the window. You see, Gordy says, I told you that you wouldn't be able to beat me that easily, and like I said before, rock types are the superior typing. Brock can do nothing but recall Gyarados and apologize for his lack of ability to see what was clearly in front of him, and the fact that he couldn't use it to the best of its abilities. Now Brock has to make an important decision. He's only got 2 Pokemon left, while Gordy still has 3, and this Barbaracle is far stronger than he gave it credit for. However, there is one thing that Brock has going for him. He does have a Pokemon that could possibly turn things in his favor. As he readies the Pokeball in his hands, he hopes that its power and its temper is going to be enough, as he declares, Thwackey, your time to battle. As the grass starter emerges from its Pokeball, it readies both of its sticks in an attempt to show that it's not intimidated by any opponent that stands before it. However, Gordy just simply laughs. So, you're going to try the even more obvious route, huh? Alright then, let's see exactly what you can do. However, this time the gym leader is going to take the first move, going on the attack with something that could be a problematic situation for the grass type, as he commands for Barbaracle to use an Icy Wind. However, this is exactly what Brock was thinking could happen. A gym leader that's as prepared as this rock type one may have something for all contingencies. So, this is exactly why he chose Thwackey, as he tells the grass monkey to use its 2 sticks as kind of a conduit point to deflect the wind, knocking away the stars of ice that come flying towards it. All the while, Thwackey uses its speed to close the gap between it and Barbaracle, as its little twigs begin to develop a coating of ice on them. Realizing what Brock is doing, Gordy decides to change tactics, as he orders Barbaracle to use another Razor Shell to bring it down on top of Thwackey, so that way he can try and cause some damage. However, this is where the trickiness of Thwackey is going to come into play, as not only does it have a bit of a temper, but it has a bit of a mischievous side as well, as it uses its iced-covered twigs to block all of the attempts at it trying to be struck with the Razor Shell, preventing any damage to itself. It's here that Milo realizes that Brock used his own strategy against him, and it's going to be too late for him to counter, as now that Thwackey has allowed Barbaracle to run the course of its attack, it is quick on the assault with a Razor Leaf. And unfortunately, this is where the downside of using Shell Smash is going to come into play, as at the cost of increasing its attack, speed, and special attack, it massively drops its special defense and defense. And this Razor Leaf is going to be close enough to have enough power to knock Barbaracle out in one fell swoop. Recalling his rock type, Gordy looks down at Thwackey, smirking, as he didn't think that the little grass monkey would have the ability to deflect an ice type attack like that, something he's going to have to take into account for later on down the road. However, he's not going to let this small victory go to Brock's head, as he already has his second choice in mind, as he declares, Stone Journer, you're up! The megalith boulders emerges from its ball with a heavy thud, as Brock knows that very friendly smile that it has on its face is very misleading, as it shares the same look in its eye that its gym leader does. Brock knows that this is going to be a challenge, and he tells Thwackey to be ready, to which the grass monkey readies its 2 sticks as its weapons of choice for this battle. However, However, they're not going to have to wait long to start battling, as with the signal for the next battle to start, both trainers give their first commands. For Brock, it's a simple one, another Razor Leaf, while Gordy chooses to go with something a little bit more on the stat increasing side, choosing to increase his Stonjourner's speed by calling for a move called Rock Polish, which Brock has seen his dad use several times, which means that Thwackey is now going to have to rival this thing in speed. However, luckily for them, they're able to land a clean Razor Leaf, as Stonjourner was spending time rubbing its body against the other rocks on the battlefield. But even though they were able to get the first damage in, that Rock Polish is going to prove to have immediate effects as Gordy calls for his next move in something called a Wonder Room. Suddenly, the area around the battlefield begins to glow in some sort of light, as the rock type's eyes begin to glow. This is where Brock realizes they can't waste any time, as he tells Thwackey to use another Razor Leaf. However, this is when it's going to be revealed that things have been flipped on their head, as the Razor Leaf has little to no effect when it comes colliding with the massive body of Stonjourner. And while there was damage there, it wasn't that much, even though there was a type advantage on Thwackey's part. This is where things begin to set in for Brock. Gordy uses stat-altering moves in order to make up the weaknesses of his rock types. It's actually quite ingenious, and it's something he's seen his father do, but never to this level. And he's going to find out just how much of a pinch that he's in when Gordy orders the next attack, coming from his stone monolith in the form of a heavy slam. All of a sudden, Thwackey finds itself on the receiving end as a massive half-ton comes crashing down on it. The only thing Brock can do is order it to try and run the best it can. However, that's not going to be an option for Thwackey, as it quickly finds itself being squished by the massive monolith. This immediately breaks Brock. He thinks that Thwackey is done after a move like that. However, as the rock type begins to crumble itself off of Thwackey, it's revealed that while Thwackey did take a massive amount of damage, it was able to provide some sort of protection by using his two sticks to dig a brief rut in the battlefield where it was going to be landed on, so the damage that it took was minimum. This surprises both Gordy and Brock, as neither one of them had ever seen anything like that before. However, it's obvious that while the damage was minimum, Thwackey is still feeling it, as it's having trouble standing up due to one of its legs having been pinned more than the other ones. It's here that Brock realizes he's not going to have any other options. If he wants to set the tone moving into the final battle, then he needs to take control. It's at this immediate moment that he activates the power of his Dynamax band, as he recalls Thwackey and engages the transformation for the grass gorilla to go big. As it emerges from the ball, Gordy can do nothing but smile at the tower-sized Titan gorilla, seemingly pleased with himself that he forced Brock into such a state this early on in the battle. However, he's not going to let this revelation dampen his mood, as he orders Stonjourner back on the attack with the Rock Slide. However, Brock isn't going to allow it the chance to connect, as he orders Thwackey to use a Max Overgrow. While Gordy's boulders are able to connect with Thwackey first, the fact of the matter is, the increase that the Dynamax transformation has provided the grass type is more than enough to prevent it from being knocked out, and this allows it to complete the grass type attack, knocking Stonjourner out in the process and bringing this battle to a close, giving Brock the second victory that he needed. As Gordy recalls his second Pokemon, he contemplates everything that has happened in this battle. He's pushed Brock to the edge, and to force him to Dynamax this early is something that he's very pleased with. However, he's going to keep that revelation to himself for the time being, as he readies his final Pokeball. While on the other side of the field, Brock is hoping that going Dynamax this early wasn't a mistake, as a healing aura begins to wash over Thwackey, giving it some much needed health back. However, they're not going to have to wait long to discover what Gordy's final Pokemon is, as he declares, "Colossal, you're up!" A giant-sized rock-type Pokemon that seems to burn with embers of coal in its back emerges from its Pokeball, ready to show Brock that just because he has the numbers advantage at this current time doesn't mean he has the ability to win. Gordy tells Brock that Colossal is his strongest Pokemon, and he's about to see the true power of rock types, as the call for the next battle is given, and Gordy wastes no time in trying to run out the time on the Dynamax by ordering a move that Brock didn't see coming, a Heat Crash. That's a fire-type move. How does this thing know it? But he doesn't have time to decipher this, as he needs to get back on the attack, telling Thwackey to use another Max Overgrow. However, unfortunately for the grass type, its attack is going to be swallowed by the intensity of the flames from the Heat Crash, preventing any damage from Colossal as it smacks into the giant grass-sized gorilla with all of the weight that it can muster. Now, while technically Thwackey does weigh more than Colossal at this current time, that doesn't mean that it's not going to feel this, as that same leg that Stonjourner had landed on is the one that Colossal had crashed into, causing even more damage, dropping the grass starter to a knee, as it can no longer support itself under its massive weight. This pleases Gordy, as he begins to see the strategy to pick apart this giant kaiju, and he wastes no time going on another attack, calling for a move that Brock didn't think something of this size was going to be able to be capable of, as Colossal jumps into the air, executing something called a flying press. It's at this point the Mon of Stone Cinders brings all of its weight down, crashing into Thwackey once more, as Brock can do nothing but order a max strike in order to try and counter. However, it's not powerful enough, as it's overwhelmed by the sheer weight of Colossal's girth, and as Thwackey writhes in pain, this runs out the final turn of Brock's Dynamax transformation, causing the grass starter to revert to its previous form. Now even worse off than it was, as it can no longer walk. This brings a smile to Gordy's face, as he tells Brock even though his strategy seems solid in theory, he's going to have quite the problem dealing with Colossal now, as he readies his own Dynamax band and initiates the process. However, what's going to pop from the ball is going to be far more terrifying than anything Brock could have produced, as his G-Max Colossal emerges from its ball. As the G-Max Colossal emerges, Brock tells Thwackey to use a Razor Leaf, trying to cause as much damage as possible. However, this is where they're going to get hit with something that's going to be of intense flames, when Gordy calls for a Max Flare that is powerful enough to envelop the entire area, burning up the Max Overgrow that Thwackey had left before and the grass starter itself, bringing its tenure in this battle to an end. Brock recalls his grass starter as he stares down the colossal titan before him. He hasn't seen a G-Max transformation as intense as this one before. He doesn't know what it is, but it actually kind of strikes fear into him. But he can't let that stop him. Joe gave him his vote of confidence, and he knew that he needed to be here. And Brock has to prove him wrong, so that way the boy doesn't feel bad if Brock loses. This just leaves the burning question of which of Brock's last 3 Pokemon is he going to use in this last fight. Stunky, he hasn't had long enough, so it may not be the best choice. And Joltik, well, let's just say a rock type and a fire type are not its best friends. That only really leaves one obvious choice in Brock's eyes, which he thinks would be the best one, as he's starting to see just exactly what this Colossal is, as he readies the Pokeball and sends in his starter that his father gave him. Carkol, your time to battle! As the rock mid-stage evolution emerges from its ball, this catches Gordy off guard. By the way Brock talked about rock types, and the way he favored water types, he never figured Brock for somebody to have a rock type. But this is where he's going to get a little bit of a history lesson for the boy, as he reveals that even though he does not like the rock type per se, this was the starter his father gave him as a sponsorship when he went to school last year. So, like it or not, they got stuck together. However, Carkol is his oldest Pokemon, and it's going to be the one that carries him to victory today. There's a brief chuckle in Gordy's voice as he declares that Brock seems to have put it together. He's figured out that Colossal is the evolved form of his Carkol, to which Brock smirks. That's right, and this means that I intend to be the one to be victorious here, as it's a point of pride with us that we couldn't let you walk away with this battle as the victor, considering we both have the same type of Pokemon basically. Well, Gordy hopes to see all of Brock's efforts play out. However, he thinks they're going to be in vain, as Colossal is his oldest Pokemon as well, and it's not going to fall that quickly to the boy no matter how much he wants it to. And the intensity the two are capable of is going to be on full display as the next round is called for to begin, with Brock calling for a smackdown in an attempt to try and cause some damage using its fire type as a weakness. However, Gordy is already fully aware of everything that his rock type is weak to, as he tells Colossal to use a Max Knuckle in an attempt to one-shot Brock's Carkol. However, there's one thing that Gordy isn't privy to about Brock and his Carkol in particular. They put a lot of emphasis on training their base speed with all the battles that they've had with Joe. This allows the rock type to quickly evade the fighting type G-Max move, putting it in a more favorable position to land that smackdown. While this does impress Gordy, he knows that he's going to still have the advantage here, as his way of dealing with this speedy little problem is if he can't hit just one specific thing, then they'll hit everything, telling Colossal to use a Max Rockfall. As giant boulders begin to levitate above them and crash into the ground, Carkol does its best to avoid them. However, unfortunately, it's not going to be able to avoid them for too long, as when the last boulder comes smashing down, while it doesn't hit the starter, the shockwave is enough to cause cause Carcoal to be sent flying into one of the other boulders that had already landed, which does cause a decent amount of damage to the rock type. However, it shuffles quickly back to its 4 legs, as it's not going to be willing to let an attack that pathetic beat it, to which Brock compliments it on. Come on, let's just show him how strong we are. The tenacity of these two are impressive, and the gym leader isn't going to sit idly by and let that overtake them, as he knows that Colossal can get one more move out before they lose their G-Max transformation. It is in this moment that Brock sees everything flash before his eyes, as Carcoal is consumed by an attack called G-Max Volcalith. Suddenly, a swirling wind of tornadoes begins to circulate around his starter as they steadily close in, causing chip damage little by little, while Gordysmon slowly reverts back to its normal stage. Carcoal can do nothing to defend itself as the chip damage begins to stack. Brock can do nothing but hear the cries of pain coming from his starter, to which his only response is to cry back its own name. However, this is going to be the exact effect and motivation that Carcoal needed, as in this gym battle, it's going to begin to glow in an evolutionary light as it increases its power and grows in size, taking on the final stage of its evolution to match the power of the gym leader. And upon this evolution, Brock's new Colossal has learned a new move called Tar Shot, as it uses it to deflect the Max Volcalith by shooting wads of tar out from itself that catch the rocks that are flying towards it, sending them back in all the directions away from it. This is able to strike Gordy's Colossal, causing some serious damage to the rock fire type. However, it's not enough to drop it, and as the two rock Goliaths stare each other down, both Brock and Gordy are left in an interesting position as they have to determine what's going to be the best path to victory. They both know one simple fact: they cannot strike each other with fire type moves, which is going to bring the moves that they can use against each other down to just 3 apiece. And there's also the overwhelming fact that Brock doesn't have as much experience with a Colossal as Gordy does, so he's going to have to be creative and hope for a little bit of luck if he hopes to win this. However, Gordy is going to do his best to throw that off their game, as he orders a rock tomb from his Colossal. However, Brock has the perfect counter for this, ordering a rapid spin. His rock type begins to spin at a high rate of speed as it cracks the boulders as they emerge from the ground, sending them careening back in the direction of Gordy's Colossal, causing more damage. It's in this moment that Brock realizes exactly what he's going to have to do. He knows how he's going to have to win this, and he can see the path to victory. His only hope is that Gordy doesn't see it. However, the gym leader isn't going to give Brock any chance to try and counter here, as he orders his Colossal in with the flying press. Once again, the rock type takes to the air in an attempt to bring all of its weight crashing down onto Brock's Mon. However, this time, Brock isn't going to let this go off without some sort of repercussions, as he tells his Colossal to use an ancient power. However, this isn't going to be the only technique that Brock uses, as Gordy's Colossal tries to crash through the boulders. Brock's Colossal counters with another rapid spin that sends the shards that were sent in its direction right back at Colossal once again, causing even more damage. It's at this point that Gordy begins to pick up to what Brock is trying. If they can't attack each other, he's going to use the power of Gordy's Mon to his advantage, which means that Gordy is going to have to change things up, forcing him into a high-risk, high-reward situation. He just hopes that Brock doesn't know the weakness of his next move, as he tells his Mon to use a tar shot. Suddenly, both Brock and his partner find that they are covered in a sticky tar, preventing it from really moving and executing any of their attacks. This is going to leave it vulnerable to any move that Gordy can think of, which absolutely terrifies Brock. However, he can't let them win, and he knows Colossal is close to its limits with all of the damage that it's taken. And Gordy aims to take exact advantage of this fact as he orders another flying press. Knowing that Carcoal can't endure another attack like that, he goes high risk as he tells his Mon to use a flame charge. However, this is going to have an added effect, as now that it's covered in tar, the normal flame that it used to surround its body with is now increased tenfold, allowing it to burn up all the tar around it and escape the attack before it is able to land. This allows Colossal to fire back with an ancient power at its enemy that crashes into Gordy's Mon as it lands on the battlefield where Colossal once stood. The impact that it takes from the crash, as well as the ancient power slamming into it from the back completely unguarded, is enough to bring this battle to an end, giving Brock the victory over Gordy. The young trainer can't believe it. The fact that he was actually able to win this is completely astonishing to him. However, he's not the only one, as Gordy approaches the young trainer and recalls his Colossal, telling Brock that this was a very fun battle. He didn't think that he would ever lose in a battle of rock types, let alone to a kid like Brock. He's shown that even though he disdains the rock type the way he says he does, he truly does have an understanding of it, and that's something he should be proud of, no matter how he feels about it. Brock just looks at Colossal and then to Gordy before thanking the gym leader for all of the things that they were able to learn today. This is where Gordy presents Brock with the rock badge, telling them to take this. They earned it, especially since they were able to have such a fun battle together. Brock accepts the badge, thanking the gym leader before celebrating with Colossal and thanking it for all of the effort that it was able to put through and for taking the risks that he knew that they could endure. With Brock's business at the gym now done, we find him back at the Pokemon Center as he's having Nurse Joy look at his Pokemon. However, this moment and sense of accomplishment that he feels is going to be quickly overshadowed as he hands over his Pokeballs to Nurse Joy. An earthquake begins to shake the Pokemon Center as all the TVs across the building begin to go staticky. The only thing Brock can do is hold on to the counter in hopes that he doesn't get crushed by something falling from the ceiling or somebody falling into him. The violent tremors from beneath their feet last for what seems like an eternity. This is so bad that even Joe is forced out of a dead sleep as he enters the main hall of the Pokemon Center, seeing Brock and Nurse Joy trying to figure out what is going on. But just as Joe asks Brock if he's okay, the shaking stops as all of the TVs come back on, and there seems to be some sort of newscast as it's declared that the wild area has become an unsafe place. Giant Dynamax Pokemon have begun to ravage the area as pillars of Dynamax energy shoot into the sky. The cause of the phenomenon is unknown, and if they can't get it under control, then Galar may be in trouble. And this is where we are going to end things for now. So tell me, how did you feel about this part? Did you enjoy the battle that Brock had with Gordy? And did you also enjoy the fact that he finally got his starter Pokemon to evolve? And how about that earthquake that they're feeling and the sudden appearance of all the Dynamax Pokemon in the wild area? What was the cause of this? And is it going to be something that our heroes are going to have to be concerned about? Let me know in the comments down below. And that's all we had for today's video. I really appreciate you guys stopping by to watch all the way to the end, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. If you guys really enjoy my content, consider following me on some of my other platforms like Discord, where you can get to know other people who are interested in what ifs, or on Twitter, where I post sometimes behind the scenes updates. Or if you want to help the channel grow a little bit extra, why don't you consider donating like the people right here have, as whatever you could offer could help us get to a larger audience by helping us get new videos done, or some of the projects that we've been more custom art is getting kind of expensive. So we want to make sure that we have the funds to do that. But with all that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed everything, and I will see you in the next video.